Every empire, every nation, every system that has experienced a collapse followed the very same cycle. Today, in 2025, we have entered into the final stage, which is civil unrest and chaos. Let me tell you this, Mo Africa. When money collapses, so do societies. And today, the world is on the verge of a monetary collapse. Welcome back to The Money Revolution, the podcast where we empower one another to build wealth through the sharing of information and ideas about how money really works. Now, just want to say a big shout out to our episode sponsor, Stokvel Gold. Now, Stokvel Gold are an authorized dealer in gold and silver, registered with the Financial Intelligence Center. Stokvel Gold assists us with all of our gold and silver purchases at the lowest prices money can get you. Now, if you want to start your own gold and silver journey, hit the Stokvel Gold link in the description below and they will take good care of you. I will once again be your handsome host, Masijela Waramantu. Of course, we are very excited for this episode as we continue our series on the financial system collapse. In our last two episodes, we exposed the pattern that past financial systems and civilizations that collapsed followed. The same pattern repeats itself across different empires, nations, and centuries apart. Stage one is characterized by government overspending, which leads to debt, and we refer to that as currency debasement. Now, the second stage is characterized by rising living standards and high levels of inflation. And right now, we find ourselves in stage three, which is characterized by civil unrest and utter chaos. This, Mo Africa, is the breaking point. This is when people can no longer afford to live. It's when the cost of survival way outweighs the hope of tomorrow. Now, societies at this point begin to unravel. Poverty turns into anger, and anger itself turns into violence. And the world, which was at some point stable, begins to burn from within. Now, let's go back in time. And this is because my grandmother would always say to me that the more awareness we have of history, the more we understand the things that are playing out in the present moment. The Roman Empire was one of the longest lasting empires in human history. Its reign lasted from 27 BC up until 476 AD. Now, its entire monetary system was built on one principle: trust in good money. And the trust was symbolized by a very small silver coin, which is called the denarius. For over 200 years, it was made out of nearly pure silver, between 95% and 98% purity. Now, as long as the denarius maintained its purity, the people believed in Rome. The economy functioned, soldiers were paid, and trade flowed, and the society was very stable. But around 193 AD, that foundation began to crack. The emperors started overspending, raising military spending and building monuments. They also funded public spectacles to keep the crowds entertained. Now, when they started running out of silver coins, they turned into the oldest trick in the political book, which is to debase their currency or to dilute their denarius coins. The silver content of the denarius significantly dropped from 50%, then to 20%, and eventually to just 2%. What had once been real silver that people trusted became a hollow shell, shiny on the outside but very much worthless in the inside. Traders began to demand more of these diluted coins for the same amount of goods and services. And as a result, inflation spiraled. Trust evaporated, and with it, the social fabric began to tear. Within decades, the empire was in free fall. Riots broke out, armies turned on their own emperors, and in just a 50-year period, Rome had 7 rulers, each one of them clawing the power from different empires, and the economy was in shambles. By the time the barbarians arrived, Rome itself was already a hollow empire. It wasn't destroyed by an invasion, but by its own devaluing of the denarius. Let me tell you this, my Africa. Overspending always leads to debasement, and debasement will always lead to inflation. Inflation then breeds poverty, and poverty leads to unrest and a rebellion from the society, which eventually will lead to a collapse. Fast forward nearly 2,000 years later, in Africa in 1990, the story of the Zimbabwean dollar. The Zimbabwean dollar at some point was actually strong. You only needed over 2 Zimbabwean dollars to get 1 US dollar. In fact, the Zimbabwean dollar was stronger than the South African rand. Confidence was significantly high, and the economy itself was very stable. But just like in Rome, that particular stability wouldn't last. In 1998, Zimbabwe decided to enter the Congo War. They supported the Congolese government against Rwanda and Uganda. The cost of this was over $200 million. Yes, nearly $1 million per day. Money that the Zimbabwean government simply did not have. And so what did they do? The government started printing more money. They effectively created more currency out of nothing, expanding their monetary supply by over 1,000%. And of course, inevitably, prices began to climb. By 2002, inflation had hit over 200%. And by 2008, it reached an unimaginable rate of 79.6 billion%. Prices in Zimbabwe were effectively doubling over 24 hours. And with it, the currency disintegrated. Zimbabwean society was in shambles, just like the Roman Empire. Crime exploded. Robberies soared from just 398 in 2002 to over 92,000 in 2007. Now, the shops in Zimbabwe were emptied, families starved. More than 1 million Zimbabwean citizens fled to South Africa searching for mere survival. Mo Africa, the pattern here is very clear and also consistent. From Rome to Zimbabwe, from the denarius to the Zimbabwean dollar, The story is always the same. You overspend, you debase your currency, you inflate prices, and then you experience a collapse that is symbolized by utter chaos. When the cost of living becomes unbearable for society, people will take to the streets. When money loses its value, trust disappears. And without trust, no society can ever stand. Today, we see the signs emerging all around the world, even more significantly here in South Africa. Global governments are drowning in debt. Prices are rising faster than wages. The ordinary South African citizen is feeling poorer year after year. The question in Africa here is, where do you stand in this cycle? When the unrest eventually begins, because this is a cycle that has shown itself to be consistent through centuries and in different empires, where will you be? Will you be hoarding paper money, or will you be holding real monetary value in the form of gold or silver? And this is because in Africa, history tells us one thing. When empires fall, the wealth doesn't just disappear. It merely changes hands. Here's the question for you, Africa. Can you see the signs repeating themselves today? Is our world heading down the same path as Rome and Zimbabwe of overspending, inflation, and eventually unrest? Please drop your thoughts for us in the comment section below. We would love to hear your perspective. And once again, Africa, thank you for joining us on another exhilarating episode of The Money Revolution. If you found the discussions made in this episode insightful, please share this episode with someone that you care about. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. And to get notified on all of our weekly episode uploads, please hit that notification bell so you never miss out. Let's wake up the masses. Let's understand how money really works and take back our power one conversation at a time. And remember, if it's paper, it will perish.